Going into this, going in just based on the trailer, I was like, what do you want to bet this little fucking shell with shoes is gonna have me getting all misty eyed? And the other half of me was like, there ain't no way. Come on, you'll feel something, but surely not cry. Oh boy.
You are beautiful.
There must be so many others like me.
Today we have Marcel the Shell. Technically, Marcel the Shell with shoes on. It's a longer title, harder to fit on a YouTube description line, and Marcel the Shell just arguably flows off the tongue easier. Plus, the reviews that I have heard have been describing it as such, just Marcel the Shell. Good. Print that.
Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
Today's choice shirt is a shirt that I've only ever worn once before, but it's probably the most wholesome shirt that I have in my possession, given its meaning. We Are Alive. It is a shirt that was put into production by the lovely couple of Brian Deckard and Amelia Rose Blair over at Deckard Games. These two, they signed the shirt. Isn't that cool? The shirt is very wholesome because it represents the community and acceptance and togetherness and all that jazz. So I want to make sure you saw it so you had context going into this. So I bet I already know what you're thinking. Marcel the Shell, what the hell is that? It's funny because this is another one of those situations where people either knew exactly what I was talking about or they didn't. I didn't realize this because commercials and ads and trailers kind of mention the fact that this is already a movie that has come out in the past, but it's getting I don't know if you call it a wider theatrical release. I didn't do too much research. But it's a wider A24 release now because A24 could put out a 5-minute clip of dog shit sitting on a sidewalk in New York and you bet your ass they make the profits back. Apparently Marcel the Shell is a pre-existing story that's been around for over a decade. If I go back to the filmography of what IMDb says anyway, this character and the story, or these stories, have been around for many a moon. I just have never heard of it somehow. Jumping right into it, Marcel the Shell and its preceding films were all directed and have a co-starring secondary protagonist of Dean Fleischer Camp. I'm not familiar with his body of work when I researched it. Primarily, this dude has been the one to spearhead the Marcel the Shell films, the story franchise. He's worked on other stuff as well, but predominantly his IMDb is Marcel the Shell. But what I gotta give props for, and I'm gonna jump right into the pros here, Jenny Slate is the voice of Marcel. Whew, round of applause, man. For one, I didn't really quite realize who Jenny Slate was without going into it beat by beat, but just showing you a glimpse of it. She is in the everything. What Troy Baker and Nolan North are to video games, Jenny Slate is to animated film, television, just everything. And very unique, flexible voice. Funny enough, the one mention I'll give her, just because, again, this movie is balls deep in my fucking throat, but she was, the way they credit her in this is Debbie the Dog Mom, but she was in Everything Everywhere All at Once. She's the one who had a little dog be if you've seen it, you know, but she's in it. So that's the voice of Marcel the Shell, and holy shit, what a fantastic portrayal. This is my first time with the character. I love this character. The voice is great. It's not annoying. It's endearing. It's unique. It's cute. It's memorable. It's entertaining. And she gives such life to, literally giving life to an inanimate object in this film. And she does it in a stellar sense. It's a film that's done well enough where even though the premise is silly, it is believable. I never once was like, oh, well, this is horror shit. I'm just watching a bunch of stop motion bullshit. No, I'm watching this film oh yeah, Community of Little Shells. Yeah, that's Marcel right there. That's her grandmother. They just kind of live out in the back garden. Just, it's all delivered in such a way where it's believable, as funny as that sounds. Maybe it's me romanticizing the film industry, but I was here for the story, and I believe in Marcel. Hashtag I believe in Marcel. Where to start with this film? I really enjoyed it. The more that I marinate on it, I kind of want to watch it again because I think I loved it. It is incredibly charming. It's an between Marcel as a character and what happens in the film, it's just a charming movie. And it is so few and far between that I get to go see a movie that is rated, G or PG, and have it be good, well written, well acted, engaging. Not to say they don't happen a lot, but they don't, for me at least, in my experience, it don't happen a lot. And it's surprisingly deep and smart. The character of Marcel, if anybody, especially if you saw the trailer, the friends that I took with me, at least one of them, was understandably very quick to write off the character and the concept, because you see it and you think that looks silly. The trailer, I think it's a good trailer, but out of all the trailers that were cut this year, maybe it's on the weaker side, but you're very easy to write them off as like, oh, it is what it is. But then the director slash actor slash narrator behind the camera has all these, questions for the shell, and I'm sure even he doesn't take Marcel seriously to begin with, but then Marcel has these, clearly intelligent, maybe a mild amount of naivete when it comes to the greater world around, but there's some solid moments where Marcel clearly has deep and profound understandings, at least from his limited experience and worldview. And although he's not as familiar with the world around him, like I said, it's life and it's people. Marcel's insights into people and the little things in life are, as I said, deep, profound, and just very, whether they're just nuanced or just surprisingly prolific. The best thing I can equate it to is Soul, right? I've referenced this movie before on occasion. I like to say that there's a nice little 2-minute scene towards the end that made me, not want to unalive myself for a couple minutes, because it reminds you of as bad and shitty as life in the world can be, and let's face it, is and are, there are the little things, moments, the feel, like right now, the feeling of carpet on my bare feet, that first bite you take into that sandwich you just made, the smell of a new DVD that you opened up, going out and feeling the sand in between your toes, the way the sun
hits that ridge just right. These hills sing.
The little things in life. And Soul showed it very well in a very nice scene that got me all emotional. And throughout the entire film, it's Marcel's point of view of the world and how being unintentionally abandoned and almost completely alone, aside from his grandmother, how even in this world where he's alone, he's been resourceful, he's figured out how to keep on living life in spite of the fact of the abandonment, and just being able to take pleasures in all the little things. Again, his worldview is very limited to like what programs he sees on the TV, what he can see out the window in the back garden, in his house. Very creative, very deep, intelligent mind, but again, it's all very limited, and I think due to that, he's gained an appreciation for what he has left. And there's something to be admired about that and be said. I myself struggle a lot with trying to find, aside from reasons to go on, trying to find, I know what makes me happy and what I enjoy about life, but trying to be able to find those things, embrace them, appreciate them, and I mean truly appreciate them, in spite of the prevailing sense of nihilism that at least I myself am plagued with. It's admirable, even for a fictitious character written in the context of this. That comes from somewhere, right? Again, it's like Everything Everywhere All at Once. You're taking these premises of nihilism and of the world being what it is and trying to find the yin for the yang, the peace there, trying to find the takeaway, what you can enjoy from it. And without getting into a whole lot of it, I called it Grammy trauma. If you, like me, have a history with a grandparent or grandparents, great-grandparents, who have suffered from age, physical or mental ailments and all that, you're in for some potentially triggering subject matter. Nothing that's too traumatic, but afterwards we had some conversation and we all shared a little bit about our past involving relatives and family and all that. Needless to say, if you want any context for what I've gone through, I don't have any grandparents left. I don't got none. So let me just say that Marcel's struggles that he has in this film are a little bit relatable for me. The only negative things I have to say about it, and it was also, not all of us enjoyed it. I did speak with a friend or two that had some thoughts about the film afterwards. You can make a case in this film for pacing a little bit. I didn't feel like the film suffered from major pacing issues, but I do maybe a few moments throughout the film, like the film wasn't like boom, 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 we're moving. The film takes its time, and sometimes borders on maybe taking its time a little bit too much. You might not like it if you're impatient, or if you have like attention issues, which understandable. I'm not faulting anybody for that. It is very much like a slice of life film, and based on whose life it is and what the subject matter of that life is, you could very easily get bored with it, I suppose. So, consider it. Slice of life film for a little shell boy. Take it for what you will. For some reason, the note I made was more emotional moments, or have those emotional moments hit even harder. It's barely a nitpick, and I'm almost tempted to like cast it off the ballot here. Like, I got misty-eyed here and there. I didn't full-on cry. I'm sure if I watched the film again and had a couple glasses of wine, I'd get into those feels, But it got me misty-eyed, and that's about it. It got me kind of emotional. But I always like films that can like rip open my rib cage and be like into the heart, not in a bad way, but just the ones that can really provoke, get that empathic response. And this film does that for the most part, but would have liked it to have hit a little bit harder, hitting different, And funny enough, the last note I made was, it's barely even a negative. I just put more lore. We got some insight into Marcel, and Marcel gives some insight into what it means to live, like what it means to live as a shell and have a community of shells, and how they all like live their lives and survive and thrive and all that. And I guess part of the story and the conceit is that you're not really supposed to be, there's no reason that's going to be given to you as to why these shells are living and up and about, right? Why is there a living shell boy? Just because how did it happen? What the more lore that I want. Like, I get why it doesn't exist, but I would still like it because I like my lore. I have very few to little complaints. A couple of those I would even argue are kind of invalid. They're just, if I had to find something to nitpick, there's very little that I disliked about this film. I think it was very well made, well directed to a point where, even though it's supposed to be a documentary, it felt almost a little bit too cinematic, which on purpose, I get it, but it felt like it was a real story. It felt like a documentary / mockumentary. It felt real enough. The acting is great. It brings these characters to life. I was in for it. I was for the characters. I was invested in the story, curious to see where it would go and how it would pan out. I think it was a very well done movie that has very few, if almost no flaws. I'm pretty sure, when I looked it up, near perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes over here. So keep that in mind. Don't write this film off. Give it a chance. I think anybody, whoever you are, regardless of background or film preference, I think everybody should give it a watch. I think it's worth it to see it in theaters. I think at the very least everybody will have a decent time with it. Some people might not like it. That's fair. I believe truly most people will. For that reason, I would give Marcel the Shell a very, very, very high 4 out of 5. Give it a very high 4 out of 5. We're near perfection. We're on the precipice of it. And this movie didn't have, quite that wow factor that would have had me going from start to finish. Very close to it. I would love to see it again. I would love to show other people, or people that I care about. It's a movie that I would recommend. It's a very, very, very good movie. But as always, thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever I make. Goodbye, travelers.